There we go.
So hi, so as I've been introduced, let's see if I can get PowerPoint to change. I have already, yes, there we go. So, oh, that's gone too many times. There's a delay. So, I work for Software Cornwall. We're based in Cornwall in the south, far southwest of the United Kingdom. We're quite isolated down here. It's a county of about 500,000 people. We have 32 secondary schools and 231 primary schools. It's a fairly small region in terms of numbers, but very large in terms of acreage or distance to travel to do outreach. So I've been doing this job since 2017, primarily in secondary schools, but also I've been trying to reach out to primary schools as well. So I have about 30 primary schools I have been into and visited, about 26 secondary schools. So doing assemblies and all kinds of things. So picture on the left there is me at a conference, an agile programming conference back in the summer last year. And on the right there, that's a presentation we were running at that conference with my colleague Nikki, who runs the marketing, and myself, who does the outreach. So please, PowerPoint, make a change. It's not. Oh, here we go. So yeah, I reach out into all the schools, doing all kinds of things the schools want me to do. Assemblies, usually to about 200 or more pupils at a time. On the top left there, we actually have a skills fair that was produced for all the schools in Cornwall. I can't remember how many companies were there, but it was in a huge conference area in Cornwall, and we managed to get, I think, 6 of our companies there. My colleague there in the orange shirt works for a laser. He has a laser company, so he was showing students how using music you can change the pitch of a laser that he uses, normally projecting onto buildings for other purposes. So we had another company there with a water plant monitoring system that some students have built on an exercise they've done with them. And another company had also bought a Tesla, and we'd actually hacked into it, into the API, and students were able to run a small piece of Python code on one of the PyTop seed computers you see on the right-hand picture, those green ones. You could run a short piece of Python code and the doors would open, the lights would open, the horn would hoot. Fantastic. Everyone loved it, especially the fact they get to play with a Tesla. So I do all kinds of little things. The bottom right there, a typical kind of scene. I rock up with my computers. We get children working together to solve various exercises I set to them. That particular one was quite a good day. I actually had a whole morning with the students, so we spent a great deal of time with them and get a great effort. I don't usually get as much time with that. I usually get one session and then I'm out. Our main thing we run is a Mission to Mars work experience for older students, about the age of 15 upwards. We do this 3 to 5 times a year. The main one, as you can see pictured here, we normally have about 30 students. The other ones, I think about 15 or 16. Last year I took this online. So instead of just having students locally within Cornwall who could travel to our venues, I was actually able to engage with students all around the United Kingdom. And it proved so popular, I was actually 3 times oversubscribed for the session I ran Easter last year during the lockdown. So virtual is a way to go in the future, and I aim to do blended, real and virtual at the same time. We also run weekend events called the Tech Jam, rather like a Raspberry Pi Jam, part of the same session. We call it Tech Jam, pies, pasties and programming. On the right-hand side is something I wanted to show you, is something else I ran for a year or so, sponsored by Spaceport Cornwall. It was a way of highlighting industries and technology inside the United Kingdom, inside Cornwall. So we got students to draw little pictures onto which they could put on our map of Cornwall. The picture was represent an activity, and we would then highlight using coding what activity you could use, what technology you could use with that particular activity. And as you touched the picture, the activities would light up on the an LED on the left-hand side of the picture. That's about 4 meters wide. So we made interactive art and coding all in one piece, which was great fun. It's been quite successful on this. We've won an award for our Mission to Mars work experience. on the left-hand side in 2019, and on the right-hand side, we were a outreach provider of the year in the south and southwest, which included Wales as well, which is also great recognition for all the work that we've done in going into schools and spreading the word about technology industry and careers inside the industry. That is primarily what we are about. I'm not going out doing the teaching. The coding is the fun bit. The reason I do this is that we have an industry, about 100 companies who are part of Software Cornwall, who need new staff. And this is an outreach, a long-term outreach event to get students coding to come and work for us. But not only to work for us, but realize you can get a very well-paid career in Cornwall. Cornwall is very much an area, a poor region of the UK. There's rather large areas of deprivation, but there is also a thriving technology industry here. And we want students to realize that it's all not doom and gloom down here. I mean, we have some fantastic countryside, amazing surfing and seas and beaches and things like that. The rest of the country come down here every summer. It's fantastic, but there's not a lot of really good jobs. The software industry have it. This is why we are doing this. There is a reason for us doing this. So the microbit and us, I've loved the microbit ever since it came out, which is way before I got this job. The reason I like the microbit, it's physical computing. You're actually having something in your hand. Teaching computing in schools, so much is just based on a screen. To actually have something in your hand, an LED, a button you can press, a noise you can make, things like that, engage with students so much more. And we know that from our Cornwall Tech Jams. It's interactive as well. You can make it do things by touching it, by pressing the buttons and things like that. It's also creative. One of the sessions I run is to get students to design their own little pictures on the LEDs. Again, I only get about an hour to do this. So from that particular one there, you can see in the image, someone has chosen a surfboard. Well, why wouldn't you? We live in Cornwall. It's a major activity down here. So that's their own image of surfboard on a microbit. And if we have the time and they're a particularly good class, I actually get them to animate their image as well, add things to it. So they can then switch the images around to make them animate, which is great fun. It's a lovely activity. It's a creative activity. So it engages with students who aren't particularly into coding, but they are creative. There's definitely a need for that. So for the coding for me, I'm a visitor in schools. I do not work in schools. So I have real problems with Wi-Fi. I don't get it. I go into a school, I ask for website access, things like that. It doesn't happen. Guaranteed, I can't do it. The microbit.org website, totally unreachable inside a school as a visitor. I cannot guarantee it's going to work, or I exclusively use Mu Editor because I can download that onto our Raspberry Pi, PyTops. I know it's there. I know it's going to work. It's also, before they updated the microbit website, I can flash the code from a microbit, from the program editor to the microbit instantly. There's no dragging, dropping, and file changing and stuff like that, as it was originally when it first came out. So we use all our own equipment. All I need is desks, chairs, power supply, and students. That's all I need to rock up. And then I know everything is under my control. If something fails, I know the reason for it. I don't have to ask for any assistance. I know from experience, it doesn't work as a visitor, Wi-Fi in schools. We always get the children to work in pairs. It's a primary way of coding in our industry. People would very rarely work by themselves in companies. Quite often we would do mob programming as well. So, employees will work up to maybe 8 people on one computer, seven of them discussing the code, one of them driving the computer. And the person driving has no contribution to the code. But after 10 minutes, they swap out, somebody else sits down, and somebody else carries on. Everybody knows what's going on. And I explain this to students every single time. And also pair programming is another good reason for it. 2 brains, twice the power. If one is not quite getting it, the other one can explain it. And we always say that all code from one brain to the computer has to pass through somebody else's hands. If you know the answer and you're typing, you have to hand the keyboard over to your partner or the other person in the team and tell them what it is and explain what it is. Everybody has to be up to scratch. And I go around the class or the Mission to Mars work experience and say, what's that line of code? Can you explain it? And if I know someone is maybe not up to scratch, I will ask them to explain it. And if they can't, I say to the team, right, you need to be able to explain all the code. I'll come back and test you again in a minute. It's not just a matter of getting it right. Everybody must understand it. I also do live coding with the class. I have done worksheets. I do create worksheets and write them all out, create them as PDFs, which we put in the Raspberry Pis, or sometimes print them out. I do find that students do this too much in class already. They have a worksheet, you do A, you do B, you get C. My worksheets don't work like that. I give you A, B's missing something, you won't get to C unless you really think about it. But I do that in the live coding as well. So I use a radio-controlled keyboard. I have Mu up on the screen or projected or whatever at the front of the class, and I'm in amongst the pupils coding live as I go, trying to remember how to do the coding without notes. So I make mistakes. The students see that, and I can do things on the fly. I can change things. If somebody asks me a particular question, I say, well, okay, let's try it. And I just type it in, and away it goes. I find that works really well with students. It means that I can actually take ideas from them and add that to my code at the same time, but it's still under the prescriptive class I'm trying to do. It's yeah, keeps it live, keeps it real. That's the best thing about it. And with younger children as well, in year 7s and below. Year 7s are the first year in secondary school in the UK. Year 6s and year 5s, about the ones I do in the primary schools, they're kind of years 9 and older. They are so receptive to this, and they just love the idea. Oh yeah, I put a few coding options before year 9. Most schools don't offer a great deal. Quite often I could be the only person going in there doing it. A lot of teachers don't seem to have the knowledge base yet. We are trying to increase that in this region. The National Centre of Computing Education is here, and they are getting out of the schools, and it is better, but it is knowledge based amongst the students. And the main one thing, as I have mentioned before, I only get one 1-hour session with the students. I don't go back into a school again and again and again. As I said, there's 231 primary schools in the region. I don't have the time to do that. This is a one-off careers visit, but with coding thrown in. And I hope to engage with the students and make them realize that this is fun, this is really cool, you can do some really fancy stuff with it. I tell them about all the things we do and that they can do as they get older and they progress through as well. And also highlight that coding is it's a community down here, the technology industry. We all get together, we all kind of know each other. It's a very small, closed community, not closed, it's very open actually, very friendly. But if you come along, network with us, even as youngsters. We have youngsters who come to our tech jams, who then grow up into secondary school, and then come along to a mission to Mars, and in the end come to work for some of our companies. We have had students who do that, and it's amazing to see them come through and doing that just in a short time. It's meeting people, greeting us, because one day, you never know, and it has happened, it happened to me, you come and volunteer or come and visit to one of our events, you could actually meet your future employer, and you go for an interview one day and that person is sitting in front of you, but you know them, they know you. All of a sudden the interview is far more friendly, far more, you know, everybody knows each other because it's a small region. I've mentioned creativity quite a bit. At the beginning of the pandemic, I put out a worksheet for some students to do using copper slug tape, which I think is a fantastic resource, especially with the microbit, with the crocodile clips. Creating some art, so you literally touched the boat and a message came up saying, cool, we are in LI, and then you touched the bottom of the rock on the lighthouse and the light came on. I love doing that. That was a real great fun one to do. Being creative, I think, is a great way to get people who could be so good in our industry, but often get ignored. I know when I go into schools, when I have a class of boys in the class, that the teacher has sent me the boys. They haven't chosen to be there. But I know we have to get all the students. So this particular session I've got here illustrated is from an all-girls school. And they love it. They really get it, because you go in doing something creative and they love it. And that's across the whole school year as well. I mean, it's a primary school to secondary school to senior school, and they love it. So I know it works, but I know the teachers and possibly parents are the guardians to the students. There's some illustrations of art I've done. There's some whole group of art on the left-hand side there, the results of the students creating their own things. On the right-hand side, coming up to Christmas, which I'll be doing this coming week, we put the microbits behind some 3D printed snowflakes. They're not currently I was going to demonstrate this, but I can't do that because I'm doing a session with 90 students on Monday. So all my microbits are packed up and ready for work on Monday morning in the back of my car. So the ones I have here are my spares. So yeah, specific events as well, and I'm running out of time, but we'll get there. We also have Tech Girls here in Cornwall, run by an ex-director of one of our software companies. She is doing some amazing stuff. She has incredible contacts, and during the I can't remember where it was now, the G7, that's right, G7 in Cornwall last summer, we had an event called the Green Hack Week, and I wrote some coding sessions for that based on collecting plastic waste on the beach. And as you went down the beach, you picked up a piece of plastic, you clicked button A, I think, and if you it was a piece of non-fishing plastic, you press button B, and then you would tally it up, and at the end you press the button, press both buttons together, and it will give you the result of how many pieces of plastic fishing and otherwise you actually collected. So I actually had a school session to do back in October. So the G7 was back in, was it June, May or June? And one of the young girls who'd done that coding mentioned she'd done that. So it had actually made an effect, and she said she really enjoyed it. It was great fun, and she went out and did a beach collect. So producing these things does help. Just drip, drip, drip all the time, little things. We've got a museum, does Telegraph Museum, Porthcurno, with the satellite, with the cables for Morse code and things used to come up the beach into Cornwall. And I went down there and created this little satellite that increased the range of the microbit radio. There's a long corridor there. So this Kerno satellite had a microbit in it, which listened to messages to it and then retransmitted them, but translated them in the process. So one microbit, you'd write the code to send a Morse message, and then the satellite would receive it, translate it, and then send a plain text message to another microbit at the far end of the corridor, out of range of the first satellite, the first microbit. So that was a cool one. That was just for a museum day event. Also, this is one I've tried. I've used this a little bit. I've created an evaluation monitor. I've seen so many people going into schools, visitors and things like that, these sheets of paper. How do you rate this A to B? You know, between 1 and 5. Is this good? Is this bad? I've been handing out a class set of microbits, pre-programmed, and they hold the microbits in their hands. So what I want you to do is answer this question. If it's a positive response, I want you to wave your hand for me like that, to shake on the microbit. And I'd say, what was this question, please? And then the children would shake, and then a smile would come up on their microbit. They would send a radio message to my microbit, and I'll have an answer of how many of them were positive about that response. Then I'll ask another question, question 2, and at the end, I just use my microbit, hit both buttons, and it would then read off question 1, so many were positive, question 2, so many were positive, and I just write this down. And there's my evaluation live with a microbit. So welcome to our Mission to Mars rovers. So these are our work experience rovers. We normally program these with an Arduino. Where's my camera up there? An Arduino using C++ language. I do this for year 9s and up. Sorry, year 9s and up. So slightly more complicated coding. I give them a bit of a head start, but it's great fun. For lower years, we have the ability to plug in a microbit. So we can switch these 2 devices in and out. It can do one or the other. So there's 2 ways we can do this. The quick one is what I'm going to show you today, is actually a radio control. So you actually have one microbit with a radio control. You tilt it one way, a little arrow comes up here, sends a radio message to the other microbit, and the rover will move forwards. Can usually do that session in about, how long does it normally take? About 45 minutes at a push. So I do need a bit of time to do this. I'm going to run this over here. I'm going to have to move my computer slightly off the side of my desk. This is going to get a bit jittery. It's the only way I can do this. So hopefully you will now be able to see the rover on the floor behind me. And if I tilt, this has already got the radio on it, because I've already, let's turn it off. There we go. Unplug it, turn it back in again. And if I tilt it, the rover moves. Now, I don't show the pupils that working when I do the exercise. I go in with a dead rover and tell them that until you put code on the rover, nothing works. So I think that's the end of my slideshow. Oh, that's the future. Okay, I'll do the future first. In the future, I hope to do neopixels. We already have some little neopixels on pieces of card there, and we have neopixel rings as well we use. But my office has just recently been renovated. The whole building has been renovated, and we have a brand new office inside it. But we have neopixels on the outside, 15,000 neopixels, fully programmable. We hope to, in a week or so's time, be told how we can access these, and we're going to work out if we can run some lessons inside the building of an evening in the autumn and winter. Students can have a go on the cards or little other things we might purchase at the time, program those, and we then ship it into the building, and you go outside and they see the code running on the building. So looking forward to that. So I'm going to stop sharing because I need to share something else. I hope, where is it? Mr. Mew, put you across there, escape. There's Mew gone. Sorry, I've just lost Mew. I think it's PowerPoint is hiding it. Here we go. So sharing Mew. Yes. So let's maximize that. So now you should see Mew. Let's make that a bit bigger for you. That works. So this is the code I give on a worksheet or working live with the students. It's not very complete, but it's quite basic, and I'll take it through and I'll explain it to them. So all that does is the bit I showed you, which is turns the rover's wheels on. The first student to get that working, and first student I see that has the code right, I tell them to flash it onto the microbit. I give them a battery box for the microbit. We plug it in, put the rover on the floor, turn it on. This one is already pre-programmed before I go in, and then they do that. And all of a sudden, the class come alive. If you've had a few stragglers or students who aren't particularly interested, all of a sudden they see a rover drive across the floor. Oh my God, it's fantastic. It really gets them going. All of a sudden, everyone is really concentrating on getting it going. It's great fun. So then they go back to the worksheet, and there's some other code in there, some other information that they have to put together. So they have to just build up the else ifs for the motions. I've only given them the forward. I haven't told them how to do the rest. All I do is give them some things that, you can turn it left and right, backwards and forwards. And obviously the rover's got to go forwards and back, left and right. And there's arrows for the compass printed on the top. So we have an arrow facing north here at the moment. So they say, so what do we do? I said, well, it's not difficult. What do you think it's doing at the moment? What do you think the F means? Usually someone say forward. Okay, so what's the opposite to forwards? And they go backwards. Ah, okay, so what letter would it be? But correct. So about going left or going right. So then they add it in. Ah, okay. And then I put in an else at the end with an S for stop. To be honest, it doesn't really matter if they don't have the stop or not, because the stop is already built into the rover. But the whole idea is that that's the else. The stop is the flag. So I only tell them how to do forwards, backwards, left and right, and then they can kind of do the rest. And by the end of the lesson, the majority will have had some code run on the rover, and a large number of them have probably done the whole remote control. And as each team completes it, I get them to then go and help the ones who may be struggling a little bit. So with a class of 30 students in 15 teams, by the majority at the end of a 45-minute to an hour lesson, everyone is running the rover. So yeah, it's great fun, and they really get it. And then I explain, what pair programming, the careers, what we're doing, the mission to Mars in the future when they get a bit older, they can do the rovers, and they can come in and do all kinds of things. We've got ultrasonic sensors on the front, so it doesn't bump into things. Ultrasonic sensors underneath, so it doesn't fall off a cliff, because they have to drive it up a slope and it mustn't fall off the other end. We have sensors on the front here as well, and the moustache, as I call it. So it has to follow a light beam. It has to be under full control, driving perfect straight lines, and I mean perfect straight lines. There's no line following. It's a mission to Mars. There is no lines on Mars. You have to be completely autonomous. So that's what we do for that. And then Another thing I do is, if we have slightly longer time, is I make it slightly more complicated, especially if with the slightly older students, year 8 and 9s maybe. They have to set up the whole rover. And I will do this live, line by line, explaining how you turn on one motor, which is the line 6, 7, and 8 there. If you can turn on one motor, that's the command for one motor. We put it in the microbit. They actually put the microbit in. So the rovers are dead on the floor. They take their microbit from their computer, plug it in, switch it on, and then the motor should run, and the rover will go around in a corner, in a circle, because only one motor is working. So right, well done, you've got a motor working. And again, people hear the motor running, something's happening. So right, I've shown you how to write one motor. Can you get the other motor going? The only difference is a left and a right. So they have to go and then figure out how to put it in. And when I think they've got it right, we've got two motors running. So, okay, you've worked out how to get two motors running. You can make the rover go forwards. How do you make it stop? How do you make it run for a specific amount of time? So each time I'm making the ones who are getting faster, going ahead, more complicated. And the ones I'm helping, I then have more time to help the ones who may be struggling. And then if they're really good, I get them to do it in functions. My favourite story about this, functions, is from a school in Camelford. I had a real mixed class of students. It was lovely because they were picked from everywhere. It was a really good session. And that's where I'm actually going on Monday, same school. Had a couple of students, a couple of girls who were English students. That was their thing. They were coming on, they'd be told to come along to coding class, but they were English students. Really enjoyed it. And I was going through the names of functions. That functions have to be named so that they mean something. And they said, "Can we like Shakespeare? Can we write the names in like Shakespeare?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, of course you can." So they were saying, define rover, move thee forwards. Thou shalt stop. It was brilliant. They had a whole name list of functions like that. It was so good. I had to photograph it and then showed it to everyone. But it's where you get the creative minds coming into coding, thinking about what you could bring into it, and then realizing how it all works. It's great. This is quite technical, but it's the creative people I love interacting with and getting them involved. It's not just the techies and the geeks. I think this kind of thing is open to everyone. We need all those kind of resources, all those kinds of people in coding. So yeah, so that's bang on. 4 minutes left. I reckon that's pretty good going. You can tell I'm practiced with this in terms of assemblies. I get 10 minutes and then I go in there. By the way, you've got 8 minutes. Okay. So I'll stop share. Do anyone have any questions? I've not been reading the questions. I've been talking so much. It's a great approach to make students connect with you and let them know that even teachers are learning. Yes, yeah, teachers. I mean, yeah, teachers are learning as well. They're learning new things. And I tell to the students that your teachers won't know this bit, and they love it. That I go in and do something different that teachers can't do, or they think of something that I haven't thought of. I said, yes, you could do that. Why not? Do you have an internet link for your lesson plans or projects? No, I can share some stuff with us. I have tried sharing in the past, but to be honest, no one's ever picked up on it. I'm quite happy to. They're not lesson plans, by the way. They are literally worksheets for the students. And then I just go in and pick out pieces that I can present live myself. You really do have to know what you're presenting, and you really do have to know when things go wrong, where they go wrong, exactly how to pick it up without any ums and ers and things like that. Which is why I'm using my own equipment when I go in. So if I'm using school equipment, and we have tried this, things go wrong. You have different sessions, different values of Chrome, using Internet Explorer still, things just don't work. Do I have a single rover for the whole class? We actually have 6 of these now. As of this summer, we have 6, but I go in with 2. 2 I can handle by myself. 6 is a bit of a handful when I'm dealing with lots of young students, especially when they're running around in a small classroom. Quite often they might stand on and things like that. Or do they have one for each pair? No, I wish they did. That would be really good. But these are a few hundreds of pounds each, and we have no funding to do this at the moment. We're totally unfunded in terms of outreach. We had funding for 2017 to 2019. We are looking for more funding at the moment to run outreach. It's a bit of a shoestring thing at the moment. But we have the rovers, we have all the resources. And to be honest, the pandemic has pretty much shut down school visits. I'm not doing anywhere near as much. I used to do at least 4 a week. I'm probably doing maybe 3 a month at the moment, and that's only in the last couple of months. It's very, very quiet. I'm so looking forward to getting back into schools and doing the 90 students on Monday with 3 sessions, 3 classes. It's going to be fantastic. Yeah. Any other questions? Oh, did you design the PCB for the microbit interface? Yes, that was my request. Our original rovers were designed primarily only for the Arduino, and I used to have to, where the pins are for the Arduino, which is here, and you take the Arduino, I would literally have one of these boards for the microbit, blue tacked onto the back of the rover, and then jumper leads into the right pins, and then map it myself. So when we had the new ones in, the guy who was making them for us from one of the companies, software companies, he said, you know, is there anything you want? I said, yes, I would love to have this. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. No, it's not a commercial product. It's all hand built, and we can't sell them either because of kite marks and EU coding things and stuff like that. It would be too expensive for us to do. They're bog standard chassis, but it's just our own board. So yeah, it's been really cool.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Robert. Right on time. You answered all the questions as well. So it all came together. I think it's amazing to see the new and innovative things that are happening. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody in chat, for listening. We are now over to our last interactive session for the conference, and then we have our closing. So very excited. Robert, thank you so much once again for your time and for coming out. And then we'll see everybody at Microbit Live in the next session. So let's go there.
Thanks everyone for listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Thanks, Bushra. That was good.
It was fantastic. Doesn't it feel nice to be done too? It's nice. Perfect. Thank you, everybody. Let's see you there.
Thank you.